In business news today, 3 things to know. First, slow and steady after a winter chill, the job market hit a milestone in March as the private sector finally recovered all the jobs lost in the 2008 financial crisis. Then, injecting cash into Africa's economy, drug maker GlaxoSmithKline plans to invest up to $200 million in Africa over the next 5 years as it banks on the continent's demand for drugs. And lights, cameras, action, the business of Broadway, folks. How black plays and musicals stay up in a down economy. The Rise Xchange starts right now. Hello, I'm Julian Phillips in for Andrew Schmertz. The U.S. economy added 192,000 jobs in March, according to the jobs report released today by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the unemployment rate remains steady at 6.7%. That's good news. Jobs numbers were strong enough to keep stock markets in the green, but despite the extreme weather conditions in February, there is not a meaningful difference between last month's results and this month. We'll have more on that in a moment. But first, here's a look at the markets today. Well, the markets across the board all down today. The Dow closing at 16,412. The S&P 500 closing at 1865, and the Nasdaq ended the day at 4127. Here's a look at the stocks we are watching today. ExxonMobil, the world's largest publicly traded oil company, agreed to report on risks surrounding disposal of fracking wastewater, air pollution, methane emissions from oil and natural gas wells, and other issues. ExxonMobil closing at $97.36. There will be no more Big Macs in Crimea for a little while, at least, after the world's largest restaurant chain, McDonald's, says it has temporarily suspended operations in the embattled country. McDonald's closing at $97.87. Crimea Mac. And a judge has ruled that a lawsuit accusing Lululemon Athletica of defrauding shareholders by hiding defects in its yoga pants should be dismissed. In a case that involved a costly recall and rejected claims, Lululemon cost investors roughly $2 billion by having concealed problems in manufacturing and marketing. Lululemon closing at $41.27. Now for a look at commodities. Gold closing up to $13,300 an ounce, and oil also closing up to 115 cents a barrel. $101.15 a barrel, that is. Okay, for more on today's jobs and what it means going forward, we turn now to John Manley, Chief Equity Strategist for Wells Fargo Funds and Management. John, welcome to the show.
Great to be back, thanks.
I've got to ask about the jobs and unemployment. It looks like we're kind of down steady here in terms of the unemployment, 6.7%. What do you make of all this?
I mean, it seemed to be pretty good to me. It's far from perfect. We should have more people working, but I think corporations are slow to hire because it costs a little more and they're still not quite certain. I don't think there was anything in the jobs number that indicated the Fed's about to tighten, nor was there anything to say that the taper was about to end. I thought it was a good number, not great, certainly not what I would have expected from the market after something like that, though.
But let's unpack this a little bit here.
Okay.
You know, every industry except manufacturing added jobs. You're talking about jobs, professional ranks, bars, and restaurants. Manufacturing, how do we get those jobs back? Do we ever get those jobs back with so many jobs now overseas?
Yes, you can bring them back. You have to go back to the time, look back when I was a child, back in the late Eisenhower, early Kennedy administration, and we had jobs here. And American corporations have to be made productive. They have to be made productive enough so that they compete with other corporations, even though they pay above world market levels in terms of wages. So that may involve lower energy prices. It may involve more technology, but I think we're moving in the right direction. It's a big hurdle, though.
What about government incentives? For instance, in New York State, there are certain areas where they have economic empowerment zones, no taxes for 10 years if you start a new job. Will those kind of things help?
I couldn't think but not. I think they have to help. I think you go back and you look at the 50s, some of the great growth in corporations in a time when it was supposedly a purely capitalist economy were in fact generated by the government. IBM started working for the government. So I think they can definitely help.
Economic data, of course, John, has come in mixed, but stocks continue to go up, hitting new records. What's happening there?
Well, I think it's the Fed. More important than the economy on a short-term basis, probably even more important than earnings or valuation, is whether the Fed's creating liquidity. If the Fed's trying to stimulate the economy, they do so by creating excess liquidity, by literally having the economy bathing in extra money, and that extra money tends to go into the stock market. And ultimately, it tends to go in the economy, therefore justifying what went on in the stock market. So watch the Fed.
I want to go back, John, for a minute here to these jobs. Professional ranks, I could understand that, but also jobs in bars and restaurants. Those seem to me, from what I'm gathering from this, these seem to be kind of minimum wage jobs. How would that affect the economy?
Well, they could. I mean, I suppose it's better a job than no job at all. But, we want to generate as many high-paying jobs as we can. That involves a certain skill level that people may or may not have. It's hard to match up the skills. And then the geographic issues. When my father was a young man, he didn't have a job. He moved from Pennsylvania to West Virginia to get a job. I don't know if I'd move these days, and I don't think people will move as much. So you've got to match these things up. And I think eventually it works out, but expect it to be slower.
Where are the jobs these days? I mean, what sectors of the country where you see the most economic growth coming?
Well, California's doing better. The South is doing better. And, let's not forget North Dakota. We think it was, I think, one of the lowest populated states in the Union. But take a look at the websites for what real estate costs in some of the big cities there. They're almost New York levels. So people are earning $100,000 and sleeping in cars to do it. So energy's there. That's fracking. That probably adds more jobs. I think some of the old Rust Belt states still have problems. It's things never come back quite the way they were before. So you have to adjust, and I think that applies to people and corporations.
So in other words, it's the Beverly Hillbillies pioneer attitude, just load up that covered wagon and head out west.
Well, they struck oil before they moved west. So they came in that wagon.
Black gold, Texas tea.
They knew Mr. Drysdale was waiting for them at the Commerce National Bank.
John, explain what you mean when you say that rising interest rates do not mean tightening.
Well, think of the economy as having something called the natural rate of interest, and that's the rate that doesn't help or hurt it. Now, that moves around a lot. When things are really bad, it's pretty low, because if you think you can build, if you're thinking of building a plant, let's say, and you think you can only make 3% on it, well, you're not going to pay more than 1 or 2% for your money. On the other hand, if things are better and your prospects are better, and you think, wow, I can earn 8, 9, 10% on this factory if I build it, well, I'll pay 3, 4, 5% for that. So it's where the Fed sets rates versus what the economy's natural or neutral rate is. That tends to rise as the economy gets better. If the Fed, if the Fed just follows it up, there's no real problem.
We got less than a minute left. I just want to focus on stocks for a second here. The stock market is up. It seems somewhat strong. Is this really a good time to invest in stocks right now?
I still think it is. I mean, it's hard because it's up an awful lot and it's been going sideways, and that drives the technicians crazy. And it worries me a little bit. But to be honest, you're looking at the fundamentals. I don't think the Fed's going to tighten for a while. I don't think earnings come down for a while, and I don't think we're overvalued. So I know I have terrible instincts on stocks. I get scared when they go down. Oh, I do. I get scared when they go down. I get excited when they go up, and you have to impose some sort of order on that. And I think the three things I look at, the Fed, the earnings, and the valuations, are the way to look at them, and they're still all positive.
Well, look, a slow and steady wins the race, and right now we've run out of time. John Manley, thank you as always, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Fantastic. Coming up, how one drug maker's plans to invest in Africa may save lives at the same time. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Because we live in a global, interconnected world, business news no longer stops when the markets close on Wall Street. And what we've discovered over the past few years of the financial crisis is that events and news that happen even in the smallest countries impact the United States and the world at large. As we bring together experts and analysts and thought leaders and CEOs and companies across many industries to not only provide the macroeconomic view, but news everyday people can use.
Arise News is a different kind of network. We are able to tell our own stories, and we're able to cover stories in a way that other media outlets don't do. We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well. Arise News is a place where we can tell stories in an interesting, factual, inclusive way like no one else in the business can.
Welcome back to The Exchange, folks. British drug maker GlaxoSmithKline plans to invest more than $200 million in Africa over the next 5 years. I think it's $216 million to be exact. It's a decision that reflects the pharmaceutical industry's growing interest in the continent, given Africa's economic growth and rising demand for medicine. Ramil Burden is Vice President of the Developing Countries Unit for GlaxoSmithKline. He joins us by phone from London. Hey, how are you?
I'm very well, and thank you very much for having me on your show.
Oh, we're so glad to have you. I guess a big question here, why is GlaxoSmithKline investing more than $200 million in African factories for research and development?
Well, I guess what we announced this week was really a continuation of a very long history we have in Africa. You may know that GlaxoSmithKline was one of the first companies to develop HIV/AIDS medicines, ARVs, and we've been working on a malaria vaccine for well over 20 years now in partnership with a number of agencies, including the Bill and Melinda Foundation. So we have a long history here. I think we're very positive about Africa. What we know is that this is a long-term play, so this is not something that we think is going to be sustainable or profitable in the short run, but over a 10, 20-year horizon. And that we also know that to really address Africa's healthcare challenges, we really have to invest in people and skills, and we have to invest in the disease awareness, and we have to really make medicines for Africans that really address their specific needs. So to do that, we have to really invest in research and development and into manufacturing across really a whole range of areas and in a whole range of countries.
Right, and Ramil, of course, we know some of the challenges there. There's Ebola, there's the break of Ebola in certain parts of Africa. Of course, HIV, we've covered that. But what are some of the other challenges in terms of these chronic diseases that the continent faces?
Well, it's one of the big challenges I think we all face is really human capabilities and human capacity. So frontline healthcare workers, infrastructure like that. One of the things we've done as a company is to reinvest 20% of our profits made in the least developed countries in sub-Saharan Africa into training of frontline workers. We do this through NGOs such as Save the Children and AMREF in Africa and CARE in other places as well. So really human capability. I was really struck by a well-known statistic that Africa has something like 25% of the disease burden of the world and only something like 3% of its healthcare workers. And so that's one of the key things that's really a challenge, and there's a lot of energy from the United Nations and from the US government and everywhere else to address that and try and really train something like 1 million new healthcare workers, and we're playing a small part in that, but that is one of the key challenges. Well, the other big challenge is really distribution and really trying to work out how do you get to the most rural, most distant parts of Africa. And organizations like PEPFAR are absolutely brilliant at this, and there's a lot we can learn from organizations like PEPFAR who do manage to get AIDS medicines to the most remote parts of places like northern Uganda, for example.
Ramil, I really like your plan here. It seems pretty good on the surface. I'm sure just digging into deep, there's a lot more meat to this. The thing that I particularly like about this, from what you're saying, if I believe that this to be correct, that you are also going to give jobs. You're giving people jobs down there. You're opening up the economy to people who live in Africa. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. So the plan initially will be to create, we expect to create something like 500 jobs at the start as we do this investment. Those will be sort of high-end jobs, if you will, and we expect a number of indirect jobs to flow from that as well. We're also going to invest very heavily in universities to help train the next generation of engineers, chemists, people with manufacturing skills, because we, as with frontline workers, healthcare workers, we also know that these technical skills that are needed to work in research and development and manufacturing, they need to be strengthened as well. And so we're going to establish something like 25 new chairs across the continent to help really bring the next generation of African talent through.
Well, I got to tell you, this sounds good. GlaxoSmithKline in the house. Ramil Burton, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, time now for our business ticker, stories making headlines around the world. Attorney General Eric Holder has announced the Justice Department will investigate high-speed stock trades and will determine if the technology violates antitrust laws. The agency will also look into the use of ultra-high-speed data networks and computer algorithms, and if that's considered insider trading. Analysts say high-speed trading is costing the market billions of dollars each year. Well, Miller Coors is investigating a possible embezzlement by 2 employees, costing the company millions of dollars. Miller Coors says former employee David Coletti is the mastermind behind an embezzlement scheme stretching over several years and worked in cahoots with another employee, and his name is Paul Edwards. Well, Paula Deen and her younger brother Bubba have closed the doors to Uncle Bubba's Seafood and Oyster House. the restaurant at the center of a workplace discrimination lawsuit that damaged the comfort food queen's reputation. But get this, no one told the staff. Employees showed up for their Thursday morning shift to lock doors. The employees were reportedly collecting their severance checks in the parking lot. I guess that dog won't hunt. And everyone's favorite broker in diapers has been retired. The E-Trade baby will no longer be featured in the trading firm's commercials. He was replaced by a much older actor, Kevin Spacey. Nothing against him, but the new ads reflect E-Trade's new game plan, according to them, that trading might be a bit more complicated than a toddler can handle. I like that kid. I guess some folks just don't know how to mess up. They just know how to mess up a free lunch program. It's ridiculous. Bring back the baby. Ahead, office thieves beware, stopping theft in the workplace when Arise Xchange returns. Stay with us. Well, Arise is the only network that really covers comprehensively the African diaspora. It gives people in other parts of the world of color a chance to know about people here in the United States, us to know about them, and the world to know about us. So it's kind of an educational experience for everybody involved. Getting to know people through stories, through personal stories. You really get a chance to know what people are actually all about, what communities are about. How are we different? But more importantly, what commonalities we all share.
The great thing about Arise Entertainment 360 is that we cover the 360 of entertainment, food, fashion, lifestyle, culture. We're able to cover it all. And the thing I love most about the show is we're able to do a stunning combination of high and low. So we can talk about Rihanna on the red carpet, but we can also speak about high art with people like Sanford Biggers and Hank Willis. We actually spend quality time with our guests and we really get to know them. It's really intriguing because we get a 360 look at our guests.
Welcome back. It's not just stealing pencils, office theft. It's a big problem that employers around the world say is not going away anytime soon. And it's costing employers billions of dollars in lost revenue as well as merchandise. Security expert Scott Schober has seen the problem firsthand as CEO of Berkeley Varitronic Systems and as a security expert consulting with companies globally. His company designed a unique gadget to stop thieves in their tracks, and he joins us now to tell us all about it. Scott, welcome back to the show. It's always good to see you because you bring gadgets here.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Now, see, I'm an 8-track kind of guy, 8-track cassette kind of guy. Forget about CDs and that stuff. And I'm thinking if you're stealing something, maybe paper clips, staples, staplers. But we're not talking about that.
No. Those days have changed greatly. Now it's digital theft. The IP on digital is worth so much of the intellectual property. People are taking laptops, mobile phones to steal information. Maybe something even as simple as taking a picture for something confidential, a schematic, a classified file, and that's worth a lot of money.
But see, Scott, that's why you have to go back to the Model T, my friend. This stuff is scary. We were talking before about, credit card theft and all those things. I mean, you have to constantly stay on your P's and Q's. In a situation like this, somebody could come in, I guess, with a smartphone, take a picture of some files, sell it to somebody, sell it to another corporation. Yeah. How do you defend yourself against this?
That's the challenge up to this point. People would use traditional metal detectors, a lot of security departments, but metal detectors only pick up certain things. Now, with mobile phones, there's very little metal in them. With laptops, there's not much metal anymore. There's a lot of unique properties in there. And what we do is have some very sensitive sensors that can pick up on the electronics inside of mobile phones, laptops, tablets, so that employees can't steal them from the workplace. And they also don't bring them into a secure facility.
All right, well, look, the one thing I like about you, I feel like every time I do a Rise Exchange and you're here, it's like back in kindergarten. Show and tell.
Show and tell time.
We are ready. What do we have over here? I guess you have your little, he's not a mannequin, he's all dressed in red.
We've got Sean here who can help demonstrate. This is called a Sentry Hound cell phone detection portal, primarily for catching cell phones, but again, laptops, tablets, electronics that you don't want it to come in or out of the workplace. And that's what it's basically doing there. It's not picking up on traditional things as a metal detector, copper, aluminum, bronze, or brass, but rather unique properties, ferrous properties inside of a mobile phone or tablet. And that's very important that you don't want these to come into a classified facility, a government facility. We read a lot about and see a lot about the problems that happen.
You hear that
and
sound?
that's the alert that he could trigger off there to alert security personnel. Somebody's coming into a secure space, with a mobile phone, a tablet, or something else.
Okay, how much does something like this cost?
This is under $5,000.
Wow.
And we introduced it recently, and it's taken off on the market internationally. We've sold this all around the world, and we continue to get sales on it, so we're really excited about it.
Can I work for you?
Sure you can.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, that sounds great, going into secure facilities. What about the regular employee who comes to work with a laptop? I mean, what, you leave you check your laptops and your cell phones at the door?
Absolutely. A lot of secure facilities, maybe manufacturing facilities, they don't allow laptops, they don't allow cell phones. A lot of machine shops, a lot of heavy machinery, anywhere where an operator could be distracted, an employee could be distracted with technology, they have a no cell phone policy, no electronics policy within a certain point where it's secure. That's where they'll use this, right outside the door. Or even a conference room. A lot of secure boardrooms and meetings. They don't want somebody to bring a mobile phone in and turn the microphone on and listen into the conversation.
Are there any legal ramifications behind this? I can understand, for instance, a secure facility, but if you're just, the regular Joe Blow going to work, maybe you don't want your cell phone confiscated at the door or your laptop. Where are we with that?
Well, you really have to comply with what's posted and stated in the company policies and procedures. And some companies will have that clearly outlined. Here's what our policies and procedures are. And statistically, even last year, there's reports of well over $50 billion in employee theft. And that involves intellectual property, stealing data, trade secrets, as well as stealing coffee from the cafeteria. So all of that lumped up, that's a lot of money.
Well, that's a lot of moolah. And,
Exactly.
we're talking about coffee and things like that. What kind of money are we talking about companies saving with a device like this?
Well, think about it. If you had a product that you were about to launch and it was a trade secret, and the competition got up on you and they got a month advantage, that could translate to millions of dollars in stealing that information, having that competitive advantage, just by bringing a mobile phone or tablet into the facility, snapping some pictures, and taking it out. So companies are spending money with technology such as this to prevent anybody bringing in electronics and stealing it.
And my executive producer, Alvina Olson, just said that these are actually popular in prisons because...
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, good point there. In prisons, contraband cell phones is a huge problem. I think we've talked about it in the past. You could fetch between $500 to $1,000 for getting a phone smuggled in. So outside the prison facilities, they'll use a device like this and have somebody walk through, maybe a visitor, maybe a lawyer, and all of the inmates to make sure it doesn't get thrown over the fence, and they tuck it away. And it does do full body detection.
Now, see, that's where you got me. Full body detection, forget about it.
Full body detection. So if you envision, if Sean had it in his foot, for example, down there in his sockaphone, it would pick that up. If he had it in his shirt pocket, if he had it in multiple phones, or a laptop here and a phone down there, it'll pick it up and it'll set off an alert.
Well, I got to tell you, this is a new age, and I feel like a dinosaur right now, but I got to tell you, we've run out of time for this, but, the next time you come back here, Scott, you need a better demonstrator. I mean, come on, whatever. Anyway, you know what I mean.
Yes.
Scott Schober, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Next, why so many African American shows struggle on the Great White Way. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Arise serves underserved communities by bringing them news, information, sports, and entertainment from places that are becoming part of the world economy, that are becoming a part of the world voice, and decisions that are affecting things in the world that people care about. They care about the economy. They care about safety and security. And if you come to Arise and you watch our broadcast, these are the things we're going to bring to you every day, 24 hours a day.
One of the great things about Arise Entertainment 360 is we have this Arise to Your Health segment, which really focuses on the holistic approach of being healthy. So we do everything from working out to juicing to getting in shape by doing fun exercises like bouncing on a trampoline or wearing these bouncy boots on our feet when we're jumping all over the set. We've done karate, we've danced the weight off, we've done just about everything. And of course, I love when we eat on set, but we do it in a very healthy and clean way.
From Porgy and Bess to Fela, Broadway and off-Broadway plays and musicals continue to make a big impact in the world of entertainment. Some of the biggest hit shows have seen record attendance recently, but that hasn't always been the case. Experts say many productions struggle to stay afloat and have seen the curtains close before they even open. Lauren Smith is an experienced producer of plays and musicals and the producer behind the new production, Late Bus to Mecca. Welcome to Xchange.
Well, thank you.
And I got to tell you, I like this, especially Broadway. My uncle, Jerry Laws, was Broadway's first black stage manager.
Oh, wow.
So I have a little history behind
You're
all
in
this
there.
stuff. You know, one thing I do know when it comes to Broadway plays, getting money is a really big thing, getting the investors to get behind. I would assume this may be a challenge for black plays and musicals.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have a couple investors in a production company with my partner, Michael Sonnenberg. I mean, it's difficult for any theater production, and it's particularly African-American theater, because there's a smaller, or perceived to be a smaller audience for it. But it is possible. There are grants, there are other things you can go to. We've been able to raise quite a bit of money, so we can put on a few productions a year.
Oh, yeah.
Three a year is the goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, we have witnessed over the years, and we're looking at some footage here of various Broadway plays and musicals. We've seen a number of them over the years. We, of course, besides your new play, After Midnight, of course, Raisin in the Sun, which opened last night at the Barrymore Theater with Denzel Washington. Is it a stretch to say that it's more challenging for black plays and musicals to survive on Broadway than other plays?
I think with the star attached, it's not as difficult. I mean, if you have Denzel Washington, Angela Bassett, Sam Jackson, I mean, some of the people that are adored in our community, I think you have a lot easier time. And I think that's true for African-American plays as well as non-African-American plays.
You've got also Motown, and that's survived for quite a while, so at least so far on Broadway.
Yes, and then you had a couple years ago, Kerry Washington was on Broadway, David Allen Greer. I mean, it boils down to, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but it's definitely viable.
How do they compare to some of the, maybe it's wrong to say bigger plays. For instance, Spider-Man, Turn Off the Dark. I mean, it cost $75 million. They lost $60 million. They're going to Las Vegas right now, so hopefully they'll recoup some of that money there. But have you seen or witnessed any black plays or musicals that failed? They couldn't get off the ground?
Not that nothing of that magnitude. I would say there are smaller productions that close all the time, but I wouldn't say anything that's on the size of Spider-Man.
In terms of black plays and musicals getting an acceptance that may not have some of the big stars, I can think of some August Wilson plays. I mean, very great stuff, but I mean, do they get a lot of attendance, and how do they stay afloat?
I think all that boils down to marketing and PR. I think you could definitely, if it's infiltrated in certain communities, churches, certain workplaces, you could definitely sell tickets. You have to start early, and you have to establish a relationship with some of the community ties. But I think that people want to support artists. I think that people are, that entertainment is a celebration, and that when people feel a part of it, they will buy into it.
Outside of some of the bigger productions, for some of the productions we're talking about, what's the price tag on this in terms of getting investors? What are we talking about in trying to put something on Broadway? How much would it cost?
In the thousands of dollars. If it were if it were a smaller production, something like a couple weeks, it could be 15 grand. And then, I mean, 4 to 6 weeks, you're 30, 45, something like that.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about your play coming up. Talk about Late Bus to Mecca.
Yeah, so Late Bus to Mecca is a play by Pearl Cleage, award-winning playwright who's also a professor at Spelman. And Bill.
And you're a Spelman grad, too.
I went to Spelman.
The nerve of you.
I did.
They had the finest girls in the land.
Yeah.
Stop cheesing there. Ear to ear. Look at you.
I would say that that's probably an accurate statement. And then the second one, it's a 2 one-act plays. It's written by Bill Harris, and he was a professor at Wayne State for a very long time. And actually, one of the plays, Every Goodbye Ain't Gone, Denzel Washington did that off-Broadway in the 80s. So,
that's good. That's good. Well, I tell you what, we're looking forward to that. And, of course, I'm going to go see Raisin in the Sun tonight. I'm sure that's going to be fantastic.
I hear it got great reviews, so you're probably in for a treat.
Okay. And you should be on Broadway or something. You look good.
I'm in the play, the one that I
you
produced.
are?
I am.
Oh, so that's the high pro glow. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm in Lake Bustameco.
Fantastic. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. All right, next week on Arise Exchange, we'll have live reports from Xchange anchor Andrew Schmertz at the International Monetary Fund's annual conference in D.C. And look at the Schmertzmeister. He's actually in Nigeria right now. I mean, look at that outfit. I don't know if it gets over, but Schmertzy, the Schmertzmeister, you are just a character. Now for another look at the markets. The Dow closing at 16,412, the S&P 500 closing at 1865, and the Nasdaq end of the day at 4127. Thanks for watching. I'm Julian Phillips. Have a great weekend.